welcome to my car. This is going to be an advanced video talking about some of the better teachers to follow when it comes to integrating manifestation concepts, and why most of the stuff you're probably following or watching videos about is actually not going to be that helpful for you, particularly long term. Whoa. If you don't know who I am, my name's Tim. I've written multiple books about manifestation, integrating stress management concepts, and I guess you could say mysticism, other, types of spiritual and mystical religious practices with these LOA concepts. I start where others end, on YouTube, basically. It's very hot in my car. I have a free book for you if you don't already have it, called The Law of Attraction Simplified. You can find a link in the description. You can also find a link in the description if you want to have a brief free consultation with me, or find out about more thorough coaching offers that I have for people who are serious. Yeah, man, yeah, lady. I'm the serious one when it comes to these ideas, which is funny because I'm not that serious of a person, but the stuff we try to talk about on this channel and that I work with clients on strips away a lot of the pretense that surrounds a lot of these LOA concepts. One of the big pretenses that I think eventually falls away from most of us is the idea that certain techniques are going to somehow save us. We realize, I think, if we're into this stuff for a while, and by that I mean, for more than a year or two, and it's fine if you're new. If you're new, listen, good. If you're new and you found this channel, that's probably a blessing. Just listen to what I'm saying, and, it's enough. You can dig it earlier. But usually it takes about a year or two to realize that this LOA shit does not really work the way at all like most of the teachers say. And that even goes for the good teachers, let alone most of the jokers and charlatans on YouTube. The emphasis on techniques, whatever they may be, things like SATs or affirmations or journaling, vision boarding, whatever the fuck it may be, it's not enough for most people. There are exceptions. For instance, there's some people who are able to do SATs and manifest things consistently that way over years. But I would even argue that people like that, unless they also are doing very committed inner work alongside a technique like SATs, and your technique could be affirmations or journaling or whatever, unless you're doing very committed inner work, looking at why you feel the way you feel and why you react to things the way you do, unless you're doing that, the technique alone is not going to probably be enough. In other words, like through visualization or affirmations, you might consistently be able to manifest good business deals, right? Or might consistently be able to manifest exciting places to travel and live and interesting people to meet. But the point is, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, where the fuck are you going to be? Mentally, emotionally? Are you going to be a changed person or not? The deeper view of this stuff is how do I change myself, my conception of myself? How do I relate to the world differently? And if we change how we relate differently to the world, inevitably, the things in our world tend to demonstrate differently. Different things manifest than before. But my focus for myself and, the folks I work with usually is just all that inner work. How do I change how I view myself? And how do I have a more peaceful relationship with myself? Because most of us don't have a very peaceful, relaxed, loving relationship with ourselves. And that's one thing that if we get deeply, seriously into LOA, we come to realize. And techniques in and of themselves are not going to really help us do that, particularly, like I said, long term. So LOA really is not about techniques. And one thing I've been thinking about recently, and I'm sharing this with Marvin Daniels, who I do a lot of relationship coaching with, so-called specific person coaching, SP coaching. Link is in the description if you're interested in that. I was sharing with Marvin recently, I really don't think most of the famous LOA teachers that we love, that I love, like, for instance, like Neville or Joseph Murphy or Catherine Ponder or Florence Scovel Shinn, or, I know some folks like Abraham Hicks, whoever, Joe Dispenza, whoever the heck you like. But the OGs that I really like, even most of them, I would argue, are too technique dependent. I think they were trying to point at, or I feel pretty firmly they were trying to point at changing your conception of yourself. For instance, that's like what Neville always talked about, right? But I think most of the great LOA teachers, and if you're new here, by the way, Neville Law of Assumption is exactly the same as the Law of Attraction stuff, okay? If you don't think that, go to another channel that's less informed. I think that while they were really about changing how you feel about yourself and recognizing that, truly you are God in a profound way, not in an ego-centered way, but it's like you are one with God, right? While those teachers like Neville and Murphy and Shinn, Ponder, were pointing at that, I think they were too technique-based in how they got people to try to recognize that. And what happens, I was talking to Marvin about, is like, I think one reason most of those teachers, their stuff doesn't work long term for most people, is because after a while the techniques stop working in the same way, and you're kind of left without a roadmap. None of those teachers really give you a good psychological roadmap of like what's happening here. Instead, they say, pray, visualize, be grateful. But they don't actually explain the psychological architecture that's going on alongside that. Now, you can disagree with me. But I've got a pretty firm conviction about this, because there's a reason I speak about the same teachers, especially recently the last couple of years, over and over again. It's because they provide you a psychological roadmap. For instance, Emile Coué provides a psychological roadmap of what's going on with your imagination and how your imagination overpowers your will. He provides that roadmap in a way that Neville does not, that Murphy does not, that Ponder does not, that Florence Scovel Shinn does not. Those latter teachers use all this wonderful metaphysical, spiritual, Christian-sounding language, but they don't really give you a psychological roadmap of the terrain, of why it's working or why it's not. It's like, oh, you don't have enough faith, you're not believing, you're not living in the end. Great, fucking wonderful, whatever. That's not good enough. Coué talks much more about why you fail. And maybe even a better example of this, one of the few other teachers who gives you a real psychological roadmap without sounding too woo-woo, without all this crazy spiritual language, is Maxwell Maltz, the author of Psycho-Cybernetics, which we've also made, I've made over 100 videos on this channel on Coué, but we've made many videos on Maltz as well. You can find the Maltz playlist. I'll put it in the description here. Maltz really talks about how you're going to fail and how failure is a natural part of the creative process. And he explains that more soberly, more psychologically in tune than any of these more spiritual sounding metaphysical teachers. Maltz makes you feel confident that failing is a good thing. Likewise, Coué makes you feel confident that if you just keep on working on this stuff, you're going to get better and better. They don't make it sound like some weird kind of spiritual, mystical quest to do it. There's an actual psychological roadmap involved. And that is why, for people who are sick of techniques, which I think, again, almost all of you will be sick of techniques after a certain point, or find that the techniques sometimes work but often do not, and don't find like they can get their bearings just by reading Neville, right? Or reading Florence Scovel Shinn or whatever. The best thing you can do is ground yourself and get your bearings. And the teachers that do that in the LOA space, in my experiences and opinion, are Coué and Maxwell Maltz. They're the best at that. So I think that's a very important point to mention because, again, no other channel is going to mention it that I know of. I wish more channels would. Please do. But yeah, I know some of you understood what I just said. Without a psychological foundation of how this stuff works, you tend to loll about and get unclear and get lost. And, ironically, not ironically, really, but the paradox is the spiritual sounding, real metaphysical teacher I like now, in terms of these LOA ideas, doesn't have a technique. That's why I trust him in this way. His roadmap is always just consider God, contemplate God. How could there be a problem if there's God? That person's Joel Goldsmith, as many of you know who watch my stuff. Again, Joel Goldsmith playlist, I'll put that in the description as well. I'll put the Joel Goldsmith playlist, the Maxwell Maltz playlist, and the Emile Coué playlist all in the description here. Goldsmith, again, most of these great teachers I mentioned, they say basically go back. You can always go back to God. Just contemplate God, right? As well as some teachers I haven't mentioned here, but that are wonderful, like H. Emily Cady or Richard Dotz, right? It's always go back and just focus on God. You can always do that. Emmett Fox, same thing. Stop thinking about your problems and think about God instead, the golden key. But Goldsmith, what makes Goldsmith so interesting compared to all those other spiritual sounding LOA teachers I just mentioned, is he's fucking consistent. He goes, great, you think you have problems, you have the stuff you want, just think about God. Not to get anything, but just to realize God. You realize God and things have a tendency to straighten out. That's about the best practical LOA advice I can give you. Right alongside Coué is if you think something is going to happen or that you're going to do something, it has a tendency to happen and you have a tendency to go do it. And that your imagination will override your willpower for good or bad. Usually for bad, quite frankly. And Coué was a master at teaching us how to do it better, more for the good. And Maltz, that line that we have to fail our way to success. The way that we achieve our goals is we relax, we imagine, and then we go out and try and fail and fail and fail and relax and imagine and fail and fail and fail and relax and imagine our end goal, and then we hit it. Those are roadmaps right there. So yeah, I think some of you got what I said. If you have questions, you can let me know. If you want coaching, you can let me know. Like I said, my book, The Law of Attraction Simplified, you can get it for free in the description. That also goes over some of these main practical, pragmatic points. And again, I obviously love teachers that are technique-based. I'm just saying, after being into this stuff for over a decade, the technique is not enough. We got to get deeper. So let's do it.